Rev up your engines!
Well, here we go with Tesla again. A whole bunch of Tesla people were locked out of their cars because there was a computer outage. Understand, you got the Teslas where everybody, I don't even have a key. I got a little card. I can use a little card to start my car, right? Well, that's all run by computers. And the computer system went down and people couldn't get in their cars and start them. Now, theoretically, you could have a key, they'll start, well, there's a key, you can start it. Of course, these people aren't carrying the keys, right? They're in the future where everything is electrified, and then they'll all be standing out in the cold freezing when their electric car doesn't open up. And it's all because the Tesla app is an app on the internet that's used to start your car. You get the little card that you stick in there or whatever you want to use. I guess there's a backup key, but nobody cares. The whole point of buying that car with all that money is you don't have to carry the keys, right? Well, so much for that bright idea. And of course, you can use your phone to start your car, right? Well, you can't use the phone when the system's down. But old Elon, he tweeted, and I quote, "Apologies, we will take measures to ensure this doesn't happen again." Of course, what it comes down to is this technology has to be up 100% of the time for it to work. It's all based on a server. If the server goes down, so does your car. You can't get it and start it. Especially if what's an emergency or something you got to get in. You can't get in, can't start your car because the server is down. Ooh. Well, you're going to be a victim of your own technology if you buy one of those things. Don't say I didn't warn you. Matt says, I got a 2021 Mazda CX-5 for my wife and it's burning oil. The warning light came on with 4,900 miles on the car, and it only been driven 5 months. Purchased new in June 2021. The dealer said they didn't find any leaks, but Mazda is aware that the engine burns oil if it idles a lot or has a lot of highway driving. He recommended changing the oil more frequently. Do turbo engines all burn oil? Should it burn oil? Well, of course they shouldn't. Now, I don't know what kind of oil Mazda's putting in those things from the factory. I have no idea. But what I'd advise you to do is change your oil and put in that new GF6 oil that says 0W16. That oil is made for turbo GDI engines. That's what it's made for. And I've seen people with Hondas that had problems with them using oil. They switched to the GF 0W16 oil and they stopped having problems. I would do that. Now, if that didn't solve it, then they just built the engines wrong, and they're not sealing correctly, and they'll just BS till the cows come. Oh, we know we've got a problem. Oh, we're not going to do anything about it. We know we have a problem. It's like going to a psychiatrist. He's not really there to fix you 100%, because if he did, he's losing his $200 an hour or whatever they charge these days, right? So he just wants to kind of string you along. Yes, let's talk about your past. Well, we know there's an oil burning problem. We're not going to do anything about it, but we know about it. Thank you for telling us. It's the problem with a lot of turbos. You get extra strain. If they're not built perfectly, they're going to burn oil. But of course, a turbocharged car should not burn oil. Back in the day, you want to go way back in Mr. Peabody's machine to the 1980s, right? Mercedes-Benz saw the heck a lot of these 300 turbo diesels. Did they burn oil? No, they didn't. I had customs with them. They didn't burn oil, and that was a diesel with even more pressure inside. If it does, it's because they didn't build the engines right. That's all that it has to do with it. It should not burn oil. They're supposed to seal it. They'll BS you till the cows come home because they made a product that was inferior if it burns oil. But do try the 0W16. And if it either slows it down or gets rid of it, great. Keep using that oil. That's what it's made for. But if it does, after using that oil, then they obviously built it poorly. Ghost 57 says, I have a 2018 Chevy Malibu. My engine overheated. I can't drive fast for a long time. How can I fix this problem? If you're saying it overheats when you go faster and not slower, pray it's the simplest thing that will do that. Your radiator can just be flat worn out. They're plastic and aluminum. If the aluminum has gotten corroded, it can't dissipate extreme amounts of heat correctly. So the faster you go, the less it can dissipate all that extra heat from the engine going fast. It can't be your cooling fans because when you're going fast, the cooling fans don't even need to do anything. You got 65, 70 mile an hour wind coming and that's plenty enough to cool the vehicle. So pray it's something simple like that, but it could be lots of things. You could have your head gasket starting to blow. You can try my video, how to tell if your head gasket's blowing, Scotty. Watch that. Could be you're just low on coolant. Check the coolant. You could be low on coolant. Also, just replace the thermostat. They don't cost much. Replace the thermostat if it's sticking and not opening the whole way. That can do it. But pray it's a simple thing and not the complex thing like your head gasket starting to blow, because Chevy's notorious for having weak engines that blow head gaskets. Tinsky says, Scotty, I got a 2012 Honda CR-V. My power steering's acting up. The power steering light comes on. I checked all the fluid, but it's fine. What could it be? All right, well, realize to begin with, you got a power steering system. It's an electronic power steering system. It's not a hydraulic system. It's electronic. That's why your power steering light is coming on. The old systems were hydraulic pumps. They gave you power steering. They have lights because they're just power steering with fluid in it. There are no lights. Yours is an electronic system. So you're going to have to go to a guy like me, somebody who knows Hondas, has a high-level scan tool, who can analyze it all with his fancy scan tool to see what's going on. Now, from my experience of those things, it's 2012. It's probably the motor assembly starting to go out. Now, it could be a lot of things. Pray it's something simpler, like maybe there's a problem in the clock spring mechanism inside the steering column that's a lot cheaper than replacing the whole rack assembly and the motor. But from my experience, it's off in the motor. 2012, that was one of the earlier electronic power steering systems they used on Hondas. And, you know, things are going to wear out that are electronic. Overuse of electronics, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, yeah, the main reason they do it is cheaper to build them, making a pump, hydraulic pump, put the lines in a rack that can hold, 1,500 psi pressure. It's very expensive to make those correctly. If you replace it with an electric motor, it's a lot cheaper to make them that way, and that's the main reason they're going that way, to make them cheaper. And they weigh slightly less that way, so they get a little tiny bit better gas mileage. Now, here's a common problem. I've got a 2017 Ridgeline. P0430 code comes and goes. I drive around Chicago, comes, stays on. I drive on the freeway, goes away. What's going on? When they're inefficient, that means they're working at less than 95% efficiency, and by law, they got to turn the code on to warn you that your car's polluting more, right? Well, you're at the edge. Sometimes it's on, sometimes it's off. Try some good catalytic converter cleaner and put in like 1 tank of Shell Super unleaded. Drive it a whole tank, see what happens. If it stays off, your catalytic converter is somewhat worn, but not too badly worn. And as long as it runs okay, it really ain't going to hurt anything. But you're in Chicago, you got your car inspected every year or whatever for the emissions, so you might want to put the cleaner in a good tank of gas the week before it's time to get it inspected to make sure that the light doesn't come on. As long as it runs okay, it's not hurting anything, but yours is at the cusp of it's good, then it's bad, it's good, then it's bad. The computer keeps checking it. And if it checks it so many times and it's good, it keeps the light off. And then if it says bad, it turns the light on. But then if it goes through so many more cycles and it checks good, then it turns the light off. And that's what's happening. Well, people certainly come up with strange ideas. Here's one of the strangest I've seen in a while. It comes from Hungary. They're calling it the I/O camper. They made this rectangular box that would fit in the back of a van. Well, that was the theory. They never actually produced any production models. People thought, somebody in Hungary thought, well, it's a pain towing the camper behind you, so let's make a rectangular camper that'll fit in the back of your van. Then you can bring it out and fold it all out and have the best of both worlds. Well, they never actually made it, because if you ask me, it's a really stupid idea. Let's think about it. One, you got this folded camper that goes in the back of your van. One, it's going to weigh a ton. How are you going to get it in and out? Two, there goes the whole utility of your stupid van. The whole van, except for the front seat, are going to be filled with this thing that's got to go in and out. An engineer, would be an engineer, Thomas Laxko from Hungary, came up with this idea. Well, but in practice, it would have been absurd. They never actually produced any. Because how are you going to get this thing in and out of your van? One, you got to have a giant van to fit it in the first place. It's got to be one of those real top, tall vans. Then there's nobody else going to be in a van except for the driver and maybe the passenger, because all the space in the back is taken up by this gigantic box. Then you got to pull the stupid thing out. Then you got to expand it. What are you going to build a house every time you go somewhere? He did actually make a prototype and had a crowdfunding campaign in 2018. Once you slid this thing out, it was 129 square feet when you expanded it. But like I say, when you want to build a house, every time you go somewhere, you got to have the van. The whole thing about a van is it carries a bunch of people. Well, if it carries this stupid little camper thing, it's not going to carry a whole bunch of people. Kind of defeats the purpose of a van. They had a kitchen and a bathroom and sleeping area for 4 people. But really, who's going to want to build this thing and carry it around? That never came to fruition, but now there's a 2022 model of the I/O camper that the camper goes on a flatbed that you tow. What's the point? You put the camper on a flatbed which you're towing around. You might as well just get a regular camper that has wheels on it. It's like this guy won't give up with his stupid ideas. He keeps watering them down. Now he's got nothing unique. Who's going to spend money for something like that? Typical engineer, comes up with these ideas that sound good, but in practice, no. They don't make any sense at all. So much for the I/O camper that never really reached production and is replaced by an expandable camper that's already on a trailer. Then you got to take it out the trailer. I mean, come on now. The whole thing is stupid. The guy's nuts. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.